Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 324 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Leigh. Leigh is Josh's mom. Leigh first reached out to me 8 months ago now. This was only 7 months after her son Josh died. She was having some trouble getting on my mailing list and getting to see the website in her home country of Australia. So I helped her out with that. She also shared a little bit about Josh and said that maybe someday she might want to share Josh's story and that she might need a nudge. Well, I never had to give that nudge because just about a month or two ago, she wrote back wanting to sponsor an episode and also saying that she thought it was time to share Josh's story. And so here she is, sharing Josh's story and sponsoring the episode with her donation of $125. So thank you so much for that too, Leigh. But she is sharing Josh with us today because it was the right time. I so love that about the podcast. I so love that people can listen for a while and think about it and spend some time and then just suddenly know when it's the right time to share. So thank you so much to Leigh for sharing Josh with us today. Again, if you want to share your story on the podcast or if you want to sponsor an episode or both, feel free to email me at Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, @andysmom.com. Right now, I just want you to sit back and listen to Leigh, Josh's mom. Thank you so much, Leigh, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Oh, Marcy, I'm just so grateful to be here and thank you for everything that you do for all of us.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. I always get nervous about scheduling these interviews that are kind of around the world like they are because I think we're 14 or 15 hours time change. And I don't know, how many times did I try to clarify and make sure we were doing this at the right time? But we are. It is morning where you are. It is night where I am. It is spring where you are. It is fall where I am. You are coming to us from Australia. But if people wonder about your accent, you've got a South African accent. So it's funny because I've had several people that are kind of like that. I had Geeti, who was living in Australia but from Sweden. I had Aaron, who was living in Canada but from South Africa. So this is kind of fun. We're getting to hear different people and, of course, talk to people from all over the world. I love it.
Yeah. Global citizens.
Global citizens. That's right. So, Leigh, why don't you just start out by telling us all about your Josh?
Oh, Marcy, our beautiful, beautiful Josh. I can't tell you how blessed we've been to have him in our lives and how we feel gratitude every single day for him and how full he made our lives. We've got South African accents. We immigrated to Australia. Matthew is Josh's brother, oldest brother. Matthew was born in South Africa and we immigrated to Australia. And then very shortly thereafter, we moved to Seoul, Korea, because Bruce, my husband, he was working all over the place and eventually secured a job in Seoul in Korea. So we moved there when Matthew was just a little one and we were struggling to have Josh.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Seoul for about 5 years. And I had a little help to conceive with Josh, and we had a few miscarriages. And Anyway, our gorgeous Josh was conceived. I actually ended up with placenta previa. I know a previous guest of yours.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. So we were Matthew is 7 years older than Josh, and we all desperately wanted him. We didn't know if he was a boy or a girl. Odds was that he had Down syndrome, and I wouldn't have an amniocentesis. The professor at the hospital, Professor Leigh, he was quite frustrated with me because he wanted me to have an amnio, but I just didn't want to take any chances to lose this baby, and I didn't care. We just wanted a little one, you know. And so I then ended up with placenta previa and spent 6 weeks prior to his birth in hospital, in Korean hospital with no English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty trying. I'd said to Bruce, because they knew that it could probably be a very long surgery afterwards, and so I said to Bruce, please don't wait with me. As soon as the baby is born, go with the baby to Matthew, because Matthew was waiting outside the doors, and because we didn't have family, or because we were in Korea. So he was born and he was perfect. I remember us being wheeled in eventually, after a good while, being wheeled into this room. And it was just the four of us, Matthew and Bruce and myself and Josh. And it was snowing outside, bitterly cold. All I could think of was, where did he come from? Where did he come from? With Matthew's birth, Matthew was new, and I knew he was just there, you know, he was Matthew. But Josh, there was a mysteriousness around his birth. We all felt that. We all wondered where had this beautiful little baby had come from, and he hummed from the very beginning.
Really?
He hummed for years. But I don't know if it was a soothing, but he was content, he was easy, he was perfect. And so wanted, you know, both our boys. I've had the enormous privilege of being a full-time mum. We waited 7 years to have Matthew so that I could be at home. And then another 7 years for Josh, because he just didn't come before that. I had this enormous privilege where I was at home with the boys. Anyway, so as I say, just desperately wanted, and we spent our time in hospital, went home, and I remember Matthew would come home from school and would say, another week's gone by, he's growing too quickly, you know. And his teacher, Liz Vincent, so Matthew was at the British school in Seoul. I was always the class mum, and his teacher, she allowed Joshua, because I was always in the classroom reading with the kids or helping in some way, and she just allowed Josh in the classroom, and they would use him for science, and then for maths, and they would put him in the middle of the circle and measure him and do math calculations around him. And
he must have been a good baby.
He was such a good baby, such an easy baby. Everybody would say to me, "Put him down, Leigh. You know, you're going to make a run for your back." And I held him all the time. I didn't want anything to change in Matthew's life, and so Joshua was just part of Matthew's world, and hence so loved, you know, so accepted. Matthew and Joshua, I never heard an argument. Never. They got on, they adored each other. Just a very different, unique relationship. And you'd think with a 7-year gap, there would be differences, but they were.
Oh, I love it.
They adored each other. But we're a very, very close family. So he's been very loved, at both the boys. So then we moved from Seoul to Shanghai when Joshua was just over 2 years old. And just on that, which I'll circle back to, but the night Josh or maybe the next day, and the horror of that time. The next day, I shared something with the family that I had never spoken of before. But one day, we were on a little playground in Seoul, and Josh was just a little 2-year-old. And I looked at him, and I remember thinking, how long have we got you for, my sweetie? And as soon as I had that thought, I immediately buried it. I thought, how can I even think that? But obviously, your Andy's drawing, and I've spoken to so many mums that have shared similar stories of just that child. There was some instance of something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. I have 3 children, 4th with Valeriano. I have never had that thought about any of the rest of them. I mean, it was only him that got that, honestly, it came from him, right? But that we had that, I really call it a bit of a gift in hindsight.
Yeah.
That this would happen. I mean, it wasn't a gift at the time. It got me very upset, just as it got you very upset. The reason I feel like it was kind of a gift, though, is because then after it did happen, felt like, well, this was going to happen. Like there's nothing really I could have done to change it. This was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you feel that way a little bit, but
yeah, well, exactly, because you have to make sense of as I say, the horror. That's all I can say. It's an absolute horror, and that's what I want to believe is, and there will be more that I'll share a little later. Where was he only ever going to have 22 years? Was there going to be a finite time with Josh? So yes, so I had that thought, and then we moved to Shanghai, and we lived in Shanghai for 2 years. We had been in Seoul for 5, and I never wanted to send the boys to school, so they only went when they were 4 years old, and so I sent him to a little school there, and I remember one teacher just saying, we always ask him where he's from, and he says he's Korean, and we always say he's not, and he would think, but I am, And then, so we lived in Shanghai, which we lived in a compound, and I had a bicycle with a buggy, and he used to spend all his time in the buggy, and just beautiful, beautiful memories there. And then from Seoul, we moved to Taipei, to Taiwan. I remember his teacher, she told me the story. Well, no, Joshua told me the story. His teacher said to him, Joshua, where are you from? And he said, I'm Korean. And he had a little girl, Joanne, in his class who was indeed Korean and looked Korean. And so he said, he's Korean. So his teacher said, Joshua, if you were Korean, you would look like Joanne. So he says to me, how can I look like a little girl? So he was convinced he was Korean. He was born there.
Yes, right, of course.
Anyway, so we lived in Taipei for 2 years, or 18 months, and then we moved to Tokyo, and we were in Tokyo for 5 years. Josh did all his elementary school in Tokyo, and Matthew did all his middle and high school in Tokyo, and we were at an American school. And just a lovely little story. He and I had driven to parent-teachers conferences. And in an American school, Matthew had changed over to an American school in Taipei. And then Joshua only ever went to an American school, an international American school. And so it's very different. There was a middle, an elementary, a middle, and a high. All on campus, and it's a very different system. So we drove to parent-teachers conferences, and we were sitting in the car waiting because we were early, and I was always class mum again, and I'd always taken cupcakes and trays of things. And so I said to Josh, do you feel like you fit into the school? Because both the boys walk to the beat of their own drums. They're just very comfortable in their skin, but also unique, also different. So I said to him, Josh, do you feel like you fit into the school? And he said, well, Mum, think of a tray of cupcakes. He said, and all of them are frosted the same, and one is different. He said, that's me. Not in an ugly duckling sort of way, just different. And so I always called him my different color cupcake. Yeah. Anyway,
Oh.
so from Tokyo, we moved back to Shanghai. Tokyo, Matthew went to university, and that was heartbreaking. He came to Australia to university, and we were all brokenhearted because we're so close. Anyway, we went to Shanghai for just short of 2 years and then moved to Hong Kong. And Matthew was always back and forth, and we were back and forth. So we saw him all the time. And then Matthew actually did an internship in Hong Kong. So we had him with us again for a while. Joshua finished all his high school in Hong Kong. And the very last bit of it through COVID online. He was so smart, but couldn't stand school. He just wanted to fly. It's all he was so passionate about aviation from popping out of the womb.
From little? Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I had a thing where the boys would come home and we'd sit at the table every day and have a snack and a cup of tea and chat about their days. And of course, Matthew was at uni, but Josh, the one day he came home and we sat at the table and started chatting, and he said to me, "Mum, do you know how fortunate I have that I have a passion that you and Dad support?" Because he went to academically very rigorous schools, and the expectation was doctors and lawyers and definitely not pilots. And he was so passionate, and we supported it 100%. And he was able to talk about it nonstop and pursue it, because he was supported in it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That so reminds me of my Andy in a way, right? I mean, he was so excited to go to that aviation school.
And even that, Marcy, in terms of, I've thought of your Andy so often in terms of that, where that passion that Joshua managed to get to, and all these moments that you have gratitude for getting a little further along, because I can't imagine Joshua gone at 14 like your Andy and not have gotten to fly, So there are all these moments of just, you understand that there's gratitude in you getting further than the children.
Than somebody else. Mm-hmm.
All of us, but there is never, ever going to ever be enough time,
No. Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So talk about him getting to fly. I want to hear this. I want to hear the story of that.
COVID had hit Hong Kong, and Bruce said, "Why don't you come home?" Well, not come home. I mean, home was Hong Kong, but Matthew and his partner Emma, they were graduate med students, and they live in Sydney. And so Bruce said, "Just leave Hong Kong a little earlier so that you can get out of it," because we were locked down far earlier than the rest of the world, and Josh was already at school online. And so we came to Sydney for 2 weeks, and we could never leave because the rest of the world found out about COVID and things locked down. And so Joshua did the rest of his education, just a few more months of his, fortunately he was graduating. And so he did that online, and I took him up to Townsville to start flight school.
This is in Sydney now.
This is in Sydney. Well, this is Townsville, right? So we were in Sydney, but
I mean, you're back in Australia. I mean,
we're back in Australia, yes. And he did his commercial pilot's license in record time, and for
Really? How fast did he get it done?
7 months.
Wow.
He was so determined, and just loved every second of it. And in fact, that in Townsville, they've got a military base in Townsville. And so he flew from that airport, and a lot of American military. And so all the American pilots, they would be speaking, with their radio calls, and they'd have to wait for these incredible military aircrafts to land before this little Cessna.
Oh, it's the Cessna. That's what they have at that school that Andy was going to go to, that Peter's at.
Really? And it's Peter's flying.
Yes, that's what they have. No, Peter. No, but Peter, actually, they have these kit airplanes where they can build them. And so he was in a
Yes.
class, he built an airplane.
Ah,
He built, because
amazing.
they fly the Cessnas, and he went up in a Cessna one time, but he's just an engineering guy. He's more the building the airplanes, and now he is into building race cars. So he wants to build race cars for a living. But they both were into different parts of it, right? I mean,
yes, which is great.
Peter was the build it and understand how it works, and he wanted to fly. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, so he did his commercial pilot's license and came home. He was ready to get going. He was enrolled at uni as well. So he was doing uni part-time and university. They call it uni here, college. He came home and he wanted to get going again. And as he drove down from Townsville, he stopped at every little airport to find out how does he really get going with this flying. And anyway, he found a job that was just a few hours from here in the Riverina, it's called, and it's agricultural flying, crop dusters, where they spray the crops. So you have to start from the bottom up and you load the planes with chemicals, and these planes are called air tractors. You load them with chemicals, and so he was doing the dirty, hard graft, but loved every minute of it. His longest week was 109 hours. He worked from morning to night and just wanted to learn. And his boss, Jason, one day he said, Josh, I need friends of yours, because he was such a hard worker. But of course, he knew no one. He was born and grew up in Asia, and so he knew no one in Australia.
Yeah.
And all he wanted to be was Australian. And so he started off, as I say, loading these airplanes and just learning everything. So eager. And eventually Jason got him flying. He felt he was ready, and he became a crop duster, and what they call an ag pilot here, an agricultural pilot. And loved it passionately. It's a dangerous job. It always worried me, but he loved it so passionately, and we could only support him, in what he loved. And he was extremely measured. He was such a funny, gregarious, had the loudest laugh, but never a clown, very serious with his job and very sensible. Often ag pilots are cowboys, and he certainly wasn't. He was there for 3 years and just absolutely loved it and learned all the ropes, and he was ready to move on. And he moved to another company where it was hard to leave his previous company because he was so close to beautiful friends, and he went to a bigger town called Griffith. He was 22 when he passed away, but at 21 he had fallen in love with also an Emma. We've had 2 Emmas. Fallen in love, bought a home. He would not ever accept a penny from us, and he had saved all this hard-earned money. He signed on his home the day before he turned 22. So he had bought a home, was so proud of himself, and had this urgency. He seemed to have this absolute urgency for life. He just did as much as he could in the short space of time that he ended up having. He ended up going to Europe before they started dating, and he ended up going to France for 5 days, and so the madness of a relationship. And so he lived fully, completely fully. He loved big, and we were all, as I say, we were such a close family. But he called me every single day of his life, often multiple times, because he'd be sitting on a paddock in his airplane waiting for the wind to change before he could fly. And he called me every day to just tell me how wonderful his day was, and loved every single moment of it. The week before his accident, he had in April we had gone to help him renovate his home. and worked really, really hard at it. And there was still rubble all in the driveway. And on the Monday, he cleaned that all up. On the Tuesday, he painted the wooden floors of the room. The Wednesday, before the accident, he had spoken to the ATO, sorting out all his tax. Almost just closing things up, finishing things. And on the Thursday was the accident. He, as I say, called me every day, and so he called me. Was passionate about podcasts, and he had painstakingly selected all these podcasts for me to listen to. And he had called me and said, "Mum, I've sent you all the podcasts, and what have you listened to?" And they were all history, and he was passionate about history, especially aviation history. But he called me. Sorry. I was building my business because we had been in Asia all these years, and Bruce was in India. He had just retired for 2 weeks, and I had my first client. I'm an interior designer, and I had my first client. And I went to the interview, and I got back into the car afterwards to call him. And I saw that he had written a message to say that he had turned off location services, because I used to like Live 360. I would follow him. I would watch him flying. I would watch him landing, and just this little dot flying around. But he said to me, "Mum, I've turned off location services. Don't worry. My battery's low. Don't worry." And we went to we have a little Airbnb that we were doing the turnaround, and we were there at Bruce and myself, and his boss, Paul, he called me and he just said, "Hi, Leigh, it's Paul from Thompson's," and which is the company name. And I hesitated, and then I said, "Paul from Thompson's," and then I said, "Oh, Paul, what's happened?" And he says, "Josh has had an accident. He had managed to get out of the plane." And as I say, he was 22, and he said they've asked him how old he's talking. They asked him how old he is, and he says he's 19 or 20. So I was immediately worried about his brain, but obviously there's massive amounts of adrenaline going through his body. I knew he had run, so his spine, I was worried about his spine, And then I handed the phone over to Bruce. And I can't even remember, I don't know if Bruce or Paul said that he's in a bad way. And so Matthew and Emma were doctors at this point, and they were both at the same hospital. And Matthew was in ED, and Emma was in cardiothoracics. And so we handed over the communication to Matthew. And I often wonder whether we made the right decision with that, because it had been so Matthew took it all over, and we had got into our car to drive to him, and Paul, his boss, had said to wait, because he would either go to Matthew's hospital or the opposite direction, Canberra. And so he said, wait, and he started driving towards us, and they had a helicopter that was ready to go, and I couldn't understand why they weren't sending it, but he was obviously not stable enough, and he eventually, died on the paddock. And Matthew got the news, So what had happened is he they obviously all the electrical power wires, and he had to fly. He always actually preferred flying under them, because he'd say to me, because I'd always be so worried about them, and he'd say to me, there's a better sense of the space you have when you fly under them. And there were trees, and the wires were in the trees. The poles were obscured, but they were in the trees. And the sun was just ahead of him. And he was probably millimeters too low, and because he was flying over them, and he hit the wires. And because the ground was so soft, because ad pilots had wires all the time, and they normally cut them,
Yeah.
Because the ground was so wet at the time, he pulled all these electrical poles
Oh, wow.
out, and they just 8 of them, and he just couldn't release them. And so yeah, and that was,
Wow. I'm so sorry. So
yeah,
hard.
so hard,
Yeah.
so hard, unthinkable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. It is. It's just unthinkable, unimaginable, and you just
yeah.
can't wrap your head around it. And so he was able to walk away, you said, to get away.
He was able to walk away, but internal injuries
Yeah.
and just obviously just so battered,
Mm-hmm.
in the actual, even because he was flying an air tractor, a 502, and they are like cages, these metal cages, and he must have been. They wear helmets.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do a post-mortem. I didn't once, and to
Yeah.
go through that, and so, but just such blunt force.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been over a year now, hasn't it?
It's been over a year. It was July the 18th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, just unimaginable. So talk about your grief journey and what maybe that started like and what it's been like over these past months.
Yeah. Oh, I I've gone through a bit of grief. I had a boyfriend actually who drowned when I was 18, and my dad died young. My granny was probably my first death, which I was devastated by. I was 13, and then a boyfriend who drowned, and my dad died at 54, but from mesothelioma, an asbestos-related cancer, and my mum had breast cancer, and she died at 76, and I was exceptionally close to my mum. So I've had 3 miscarriages. I know grief,
Mm-hmm.
but this, Marcy, as you know, this is like nothing
Yes.
that is. You cannot imagine the horror of losing a child. I know that everybody's grief is their own, and it is I don't ever want to take away from that, but
Right.
when the order is wrong, you can't lose your children. You
Right.
can't lose your children, and our love is our grief, isn't it? We could not have loved more. We could not have been a closer family. Matthew says it is just impossible. We've retired now, and so we are in the very fortunate position that we didn't have to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine, I know your experience, I can't imagine what it's like having to go back to work, having lost a child. I really, and where the world just moves on and they don't give you any opportunity really to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew and Emma, they found it incredibly hard. Matthew went back to the emergency department where he hoped his brother would be wheeled and saved. And Emma couldn't scrub in anymore in cardiothoracic because she didn't want to watch hearts get started, And so their grief has been so enormous. And Bruce and I, it's broken us. It's absolutely broken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done without your podcast. I really, in the Asian and Indian world, there's a low bow and a touching of feet in respect. And honestly, Marcy, with such respect, I feel like you deserve low bows and touching of feet, because I found you early on when you and Eric, your first, when you were on Eric's podcast.
I think you're the first person that found me that way, actually. Isn't that really
Really?
interesting? Yeah. Because
Really?
I mean, I talk about this sometimes that Eric had a podcast. It was a medical kind of podcast, and he had been doing it for 24 episodes when Andy died, and he thought maybe he would be done. And then he decided he wanted to keep doing it again. And one of the reasons he decided is because Andy was so excited by his dad doing a podcast. Every week he used to say to him, "Dad, have you gone viral yet?" It was so funny. Like, buddy, no. No, it's like a kind of obscure medical podcast. But he felt like Andy would have wanted him to continue, but he couldn't just do another episode. So he asked me to do one with him. I still remember we were sitting on our bed in our bedroom, the two of us, each with a microphone. I don't even remember what we said. I don't. I cried a lot. I know that.
Yeah.
I know I cried a lot. I knew it was really quite early. And yeah, I don't even, it's so funny. That's my whole memory of it, is just that we were sitting on the bed and I cried. I don't remember much of anything else about it. And it was a long time later when I started the podcast, because we did that early, like I said, and I started the podcast at about the 1 year mark after Andy died. So it's crazy to me. It just goes to show that sometimes you're just meant to find things, because you found that episode long time after it was recorded, right?
Right.
Like, when did you find it? I mean, it had to have been way after, obviously.
Those early days, it's just absolute horror, the horror of grief. And so I don't know how I found it. I have no memory of how I found it. But I remember listening to it and thinking, oh my goodness, you are me. I could relate to, because as I say, I had grieved before. I knew grief.
And that's where we were so much the same that way. And that as I listened to you talk about all the grief that you had in your past, I had that too. And
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I kind of thought, I mean, not like I thought I was going to do great with the grief, because I didn't, because I was feeling really lost and like it was not survivable. But I remember thinking to myself, you have done this. Eric really hadn't, right? I mean, he hadn't had the personal loss that I had had. And I thought, you're going to have to show him how to do this. You're going to have to help him. And I don't know if you felt that a little bit with Bruce because I mean, he certainly experienced miscarriages with you, and Eric experienced our miscarriage too with me. Yeah. But, he hadn't lost his parents. He hadn't lost,
Right.
And that, like you obviously had lost parents. You lost the boyfriend. You lost different people close. And I imagine you thought you'd be able to do it in some ways a little better than Bruce.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, well, Bruce has lost his parents as well. And so so there was, it is such a different loss.
I know.
There is no comparison to.
You can't. Yeah, I know.
It's your 4 limbs have been ripped off your body and you have gaping wounds. It's.
Yeah.
Because even now, all I can think of is, I mean, every day I sob, and I've cried every day for
15 months.
You and I, yes. Yeah. And I know that it doesn't matter. Obviously, I am learning, but it is all in the absence of. We are never going to get our children back, and that is unthinkable. It is unthinkable loss. It's unthinkable that we get to live and our children don't. Bruce and I have said over and over, we would trade our lives over and over. This is where it is such a different loss. When I hear you say, you can go to be with Andy, Eric can look after the other 2, there's nothing rational in our thinking,
No.
But that's what we think. Is
right.
With our other children.
Right. It's totally irrational, but it's 100% what I'm thinking. Like, this makes sense to me.
Yes. It all makes sense. And it's got no bearing.
It's very interesting because my mother-in-law is having some very severe dementia, and my father-in-law has been reluctant to put her in a memory care facility, which she needs and is going to do. But he's been reluctant to do it, and he has said, if we do that, it'll kill her, is what he said, because he can't see doing it. But overall, it would be better. But that's what he said. And I said to my daughter, because then we were together and she saw her grandma and how bad things were. And I said, you have to promise me if I get to that point, you put me somewhere. And I want you to remember that if it kills me a little quicker to go there, that's not a bad thing. I said, your brother will have been gone for a really long time by then, and I will be anxious to go. So if it means I have a few months shorter to live, let's just go for it. And she, of course, kind of laughed. And I said it sort of, to make a little bit more light of that. But it's so true. I mean, it's 100% true. They all know that if something happens tomorrow and I am not alive, I won't be heartbroken, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they'll be sad, and I understand that, and I'm not wanting it to happen, but also, it's not bad either.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I never experienced that with previous grief, with my mum or my dad. Never.
No.
I want to die. And in the early days, you really do want to die,
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you really don't want to wake up. Please don't let me wake up tomorrow. Please don't let me wake up tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes. That's all I hope for. Bruce, I've said to him, if I have a stroke, you leave me. You do not call anybody. I said to that kid, Emma, you better sort me out. You better hook me up with something because I'm not going. It's a very, very different way of thinking. I mean,
I know Eric calls it my soft death wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting a little better now, but you're only 15 months in. So I think it's completely normal to have a little bit of a soft death wish right now.
Yeah. Every day.
Because you're early.
Early. And it still feels completely impossible. Also, I don't know, this is, I can't remember the name, but one of the dads, he said something similar to this. But when that first night of Josh's accident, the kids, they've got 2 cats and so they bundled everything up and they came down and they stayed with us for 3 weeks before they went back to work. And just just as you know. But I would go to bed at night and I would be begging Josh to just go a little higher. And there was this thinking that I could bring him back, that somehow, surely a mother's love can bring your child. There's nothing rational. And I've never thought that, before. And then he only got to us after 3 weeks because just the way it all worked. And I remember feeling so defeated when he got to us because I wasn't able to bring him back to life, So there is, it is a death like no other. It is a grief like no other.
Mm-hmm.
And so your podcast, Marcy, when I heard you, it was, oh my goodness, this and then it was, I don't know how long later where I thought, I have to find you again. I looked for podcasts, and as you said, there was nothing, very little, and probably a bit more than the years before with you, with Andy. And then when I found you, again, I don't know how, I have listened, as I say, every week, multiple times. I re-listen. Bruce couldn't listen to podcasts initially. He eventually started listening. He'll say, when we're driving, he'll say, which one of Marcy's should we listen to? You are part of the girls at Compassionate Friends. They've been saying, please send some, good ones. And I'm always sending podcasts on our WhatsApp. Yesterday it was, her daughter. I just want to find it because it was so relatable. I screen grabbed Ashley's mum.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I think it was lymphoma. And
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, she lived in New York, and it
Yeah.
just so relatable, And I think that's what the comfort that your podcasts have been, is that you have to surround yourself with people that have lost children.
Yeah.
You have to.
Right. So you don't feel so alone, because it's so lonely.
It is so lonely.
It's just a really lonely experience.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. And it's been said so many times on your podcast as well that people disappear very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I have my one friend, Mandy, who is such a dear friend to me. And she said in the very early days, honestly, the first week probably, she said that your grief doesn't scare me. And that was the best thing that anybody has ever said to me, because I cry with her, I think, every time, and I see her a lot. And I can just be exactly who I am with her,
I love that.
Yeah.
That may have been the best thing I have ever heard a friend say. I am going to keep that one, because that's what you need. You need someone that isn't going to be scared of your grief, because
Yeah.
it is scary.
Yeah.
And it feels scary to you. I mean, I remember when I would just completely just fall into lament and just be sobbing and sobbing, and it was terrifying. So to have a friend say, your grief doesn't scare me, is huge. I mean, I think back to some of my closest friends, and I know my grief scared them. And it makes you pull back,
It's
because you see that terrified look on their face, and you're like, I can't do this to them, because they can't take it. They can't handle it. But I'm so glad Mandy can. Wow.
and so exactly that. She really is my closest friend, pretty much my only friend here, because we've been in Asia for so many years,
Yeah.
She speaks about Josh. She'll send me photos up. She goes to where he lays. She's just been incredible. I don't know what I would have done without her and Bruce and the kids. I always say all of our relationships are different in that I'm a mum, Bruce is a dad, the kids are it's their brother. But our love for Josh is the same. We have love so, so big. And so I know that whilst our grief might all be different, we've all got the same terrible, terrible loss. And that connects us, in a way that is, we're very privileged to have. We've known such love, and much love from Josh. There wasn't a day that he didn't tell me he loved me. And so that in itself is such a great gift, But his loss is unfathomable, too big, too hard.
And still just too big to wrap your hand around, really.
I can't come to terms with it. I can't make sense of it. I can't. The only thing I can say, I know you've had various guests speak about signs, and that is one thing, Marcy, that again, our compassionate friends group, the one day we all spoke about signs, and I thought, if somebody was sitting in here, they would think we've all gone mad.
Yes.
That one lost a child. But I have had signs. So my first sign, the very first sign that I didn't see, but we did because we were so new here, and our home, a few weeks before the accidents, I said to Josh, we need to go somewhere. Our little family needs to go somewhere where we can just go away together and have a nice time. And he said, but Mum, that's our home. And so home is very important to all of us. And so I knew that his celebration of life, which is such a hard thing to even say, needed to be at home. And here we were so new, and all these people came, and all his friends that loved him, and all his colleagues, and just these beautiful people that were devastated because he was such a beautiful, beautiful person, and so incredibly loved. And we were all outside. It was in winter, we were all outside. And I remember so little about that day. But an air tractor, which is a yellow, so it's the plane Joshua flew. It is a yellow plane, very distinct. There's no ag flying, crop dusting in our area. And during that time, outside, an air tractor flew over us. And all the pilots, I was told after this by Luke, Joshua's very close friend, all the pilots looked up and saw this air tractor fly past at that precise moment where they don't fly. So that was the first time. I didn't see it.
And they didn't know anything about it, right? They knew nothing about why it would be there or anything.
No, it should never have been here. Should never have been here. So, and they all pilots that know, we've got our neighbor is a pilot that knows the area so
Right.
well.
And all the pilots that he knew were there, probably.
Yes, everyone.
Right? They weren't up in the plane. Yeah.
Everyone up, yes. And they all looked up because I still can't even look up at the sky, So we had gone to Josh's home. This is about 2 months later, which was just impossible we had been once before and with Matthew, and then just Bruce and I had to go. And there was such hard journeys to go back. And we had gone to stay in this place that we had stayed in when we were renovating Josh's home because his home was unlivable. And my grief has been so physical. We had writhed almost in grief,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was serviced apartments, so there was a little lounge and then the bedroom. And I never lie down in the day. And I charged my phone in the lounge and I went and I lay down in a fetal position on the bed. And I said to Bruce, just come and lie with me. And I was sobbing. And I said to Josh, please send me a sign. And it was the first time I said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately thought, what a stupid thing to say. Why would I even say something like that? And at that moment, my phone beeped with a WhatsApp message. And I ignored it because it was in another room. We had the one thing I knew Josh would have said is, Mum, please get a puppy. Because he always used to say, so what's your and Dad's retirement dog going to be? And so I knew that he would want us to get a puppy. So we were waiting for this little puppy, and we decided to call her Maple for reasons I won't go in, but her name was going to be Maple. And so I said to Josh, please send me a sign. Immediately felt ridiculous. My phone beeps. I get up about 30 minutes later and go to my phone. And my sister, the message was from my sister, and it was a photo of a maple leaf that said, is this a maple leaf? And it was at the exact same time that I'd asked Joshua to send a sign. And it was this little dog Maple that I knew that he wanted us to get, There have been so many signs. We've got his microwave, the anniversary of his passing. I went to put a milk in the microwave to heat up. It was 11:11 on the microwave. Bruce went to go and spend time with where he lays, and his ute in his truck, and the time was 11:11. The temperature was 11. All these little but incredible. It's always when you share them, they're not as meaningful as what they are at the time, where they almost. The once I said to Maple, let's go see Josh. I've never ever done that. I ran out the house, ran across where I never go, and there was a rainbow. So really some amazing, beautiful signs that connect us to him. I write to him every day.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a lonely journey of grief, that I'll read something to you that I don't know if you know Nicholas Cave. He's a Australian musician, and he wrote. He's lost 2 children, him and his wife. He wrote, there is a special place reserved for mothers who have lost their sons. Theirs is a singular and complex order of torture, unlike any other grief. And the fundamental need to lock oneself away from the world is natural, perhaps necessary. It is a form of self-imposed entombment, adjacent to eternity, where they can better be with the one they lost.
Oh,
Yeah, that resonated with me.
That does resonate. Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's unlike any other.
Mm-hmm.
I've needed to cocoon myself. I've needed to separate myself from the world. I walk in nature, I garden, I listen to bird song. We don't know what we would do without Maple. We light a candle for Josh every single day. Bruce and I sit mindfully at dinner, and we've only just started about 2 months ago. We couldn't before. That's Maple. We go up to Matthew and Emma every week and sit and have dinner with them, and cook for them and fill their freezer. But Josh is in our every single day
Yeah.
in everything we do. But it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible suffering. Yeah.
But yeah, you get up every day, don't you?
Yeah.
Even though you don't think you can, you somehow do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found it. I think it's so primal, and somehow we have been designed to survive.
Mhm.
We have been designed to get up and put one foot in front of the other. I went to my GP in the very, very early days. I have a lovely GP, and unfortunately, I also got breast cancer in 22, and so I'm just having Zamita, like a bone infusion every 6 months now. But I'm finished. My hair's all back, and
Mm-hmm.
but so I saw my oncologist as well. So I saw my GP and my oncologist, and both the most beautiful people, but they immediately wanted to medicate me. And I just said to them, nothing can take this away. You can't
No.
medicate this away.
Yeah.
You can't. It's
Yeah.
primal. You have to dig in
Mm-hmm.
and connect to the earth, connect to the hope that there's something more, that there's some meaning, surely, there's some order. I don't know.
I'm glad that you said that. I know when I went to my doctor fairly early on too, and her nurse actually had lost a child, so she didn't bring me back that day. Somebody else did at first, and then she came in later. And then the next time I came in, she brought me a gift. Actually, it was really beautiful. But I remember my doctor saying, "I'm not going to put you on medication because that's not what you need," because I was just feeling so broken. And my friend Michelle, who I talk about all the time, we have the same doctor, and she said, "Just go in and see her. Maybe she can do something." And she said, "There's nothing I'm going to be able to do." Now, I do have to eventually say that I did eventually go on some medication because I had such bad PTSD from the accident that the anxiety was really, really bad from my experience being in the car accident. So I did go on some medication for a time for that, which I think it can be very beneficial.
Absolutely.
But for grief in general, it's just not helpful. It's just if you have other things, certainly.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But you were right in that. And my doctor, I think, was right in not doing that right away. It's not something to do right away.
That's right. I'm so glad you raised that point, because in our Compassion Friends group, some are medicated, some aren't, and some really have to be for other reasons, And so it is so personal, but it is for me. As I say, I know you've had EMDR. I'm actually going to start some brain spotting.
Oh yes, I have a friend that does that too.
Right,
Mhm.
because I can't. There's so much trauma, electrical lines, the sky, airplanes. It's just so much trauma, but you realize that medication will have its place for some, but it is somatic work. It is your body. It is primal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And everything that they say, journaling, creativity, nature, it is true.
Yes, it all has a place. Mm-hmm. It all has a place.
It all has a place.
Nature really does for me too. 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And as we spoke earlier, where last year I hated the seasons, and this year they've needed to come, And I think it is a sense of order, of beginning, we've had so much in our lives. We were in Japan for the big earthquake. We've had a house burn down. We've had so much in our background of big things happening, and perhaps talk therapy can help with things like that. But I think this primal grief, you need to do primal things, and that's working with the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My therapist says all the time to me, your body remembers. Your body remembers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua also, just to mention, he had an incredible sense of it. I don't know if you know Anderson Cooper's All There Is podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were in Hong Kong, we would follow the news together, and we loved Anderson Cooper. He's just, I think, such a beautiful, beautiful man. And I'd said to Josh when we were when he was flying, I said, Josh, Anderson's put out a podcast. And he would have been 20 at the time. He listened to the whole podcast, a 20-year-old listening to a podcast on grief. And then he said to me, Mum, you cannot listen to I think it was episode 3. It's on the loss of a child. You can't listen to that. We watched so many shows together, or movies and TV. And then when he was living in Griffith, he would send me he would say, Mum, you can't watch this, you can't watch that, if it was about a loss of a child. So there was a great sensitivity to that as well, and a great awareness of grief.
Well, beautiful. I had just want to thank you again so much, Leigh, for sharing Josh with us today. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, Marcy. Thank you for all you do for all of us, truly. When you have days that it feels hard, just know how you are received, because
thank you so much.
I've got deep gratitude. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.